From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Tuesday, July 8, 2025. Guilty. Erin Patterson will spend the rest of her life in jail after being convicted of murdering 3 elderly relatives and attempting to murder a 4th with deadly death cap mushrooms. She's already been in jail for 18 months, something the jury which heard her case didn't know before convicting her on Monday. Today, why Patterson's decision to give evidence sealed her fate. There's a reason accused people don't usually give evidence. It's a massive risk to take, a threefold gamble that the accused is smarter than the Crown prosecutor, capable of charming a jury, and telling the truth. In Erin Patterson's case, none of those were true. When Patterson's defence lawyer, Colin Mandy SC, was directly asked by the judge on May 28,
"You don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but is your client giving evidence?"
Mandy said,
"I don't want to answer that question, Your Honour."
"We've used voice actors to bring you the words spoken in court." That exchange, of course, was in the absence of the jury, who must have been exhausted by the constant requests for them to leave the courtroom so the lawyers could hash something out. Mandy did call Patterson to give evidence, maybe at her insistence, maybe out of a rush of confidence that, until that point, things had been going so well for the defence. Mandy should have quit while he was ahead. On Monday at 2:15pm, the Victorian Supreme Court sitting at Morwell in the Latrobe Valley reconvened after 10 weeks of trial, including 7 days of jury deliberations.
Madam Foreperson and members of the jury, have you agreed upon your verdicts?
We have.
On the charge of attempted murder against Ian Wilkinson, do you find the accused, Erin Trudy Patterson, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
On the charge of murder against Heather Wilkinson, do you find the accused, Erin Trudy Patterson, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
On the charge of murder against Gail Patterson, do you find the accused, Erin Trudy Patterson, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
On the charge of murder against Donald Patterson, do you find the accused, Erin Trudy Patterson, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Erin Patterson's time in the witness box was a catastrophe. As soon as Patterson opened her mouth, her deficiencies as a witness became clear. She began introducing ideas and theories the jury had never heard before, not in the police record of interview, not in Mandy's brief opening statement, not in any of her statements to witnesses who'd previously given evidence, like her online friends, her husband, or the various medical professionals she spoke to at the hospital. The Crown's case was that Erin Patterson faked a cancer scare to lure her husband and his elderly relatives to her house in the absence of the children for that lunch. So how would Patterson explain this to the jury? In pre-lunch text messages to Gail Patterson, the jury had already been shown Erin Patterson lied to her mother-in-law that she was having a needle biopsy, then an MRI.
Hi, Erin. Just wondering how you got on at your appointment today. Love, Gail and Don.
Hi, Gail. Sorry, I'd taken my daughter to see a movie last night. We saw The Little Mermaid. The appointment went okay, thanks for asking. I had a needle biopsy taken of the lump and I'm returning for an MRI next week, and we'll know more after the results of those 2 things.
In her evidence, Patterson also had to explain why the only surviving guest, Ian Wilkinson, clearly recalled her telling the luncheon group she believed she had ovarian cancer, and then her joining the group in a post-lunch prayer led by Ian for her safe recovery. Patterson's story, presented to the jury over 3 days of friendly evidence-in-chief elicited by Mandy, went like this. Her real reason for holding the lunch was that she wanted help from the extended family with school pickups and drop-offs during a planned medical procedure. Not for cancer, mind, but for gastric band surgery, something she'd resolved to do in convenient secrecy and was conveniently too ashamed to tell anyone the truth about. She said she allowed the guests to think there was a possibility of ovarian cancer because she had so deeply valued the loving concern Don and Gail had previously shown for her health.
So it was right at the end of the meal and I mentioned that I'd had a I'd had an issue a year or two earlier where I'd thought that I'd had ovarian cancer and had various scans related to that. And then, I'm not proud of this, but I led them to believe that I might be needing some treatment in regards to that in the next few weeks or months.
And do you remember what you said about that in any more detail?
Not specifically. I do remember I referred to an upcoming treatment because primarily in my mind I was thinking I might need help with getting the kids to and from the bus or activities, and I thought I might need to explain why I was going up to hospital for a day or two. So that was really the focus of what I was talking about.
Did you mislead them?
I did.
How did that conversation conclude?
They all showed a lot of compassion about that, and then we saw Simon's car driving into the driveway, coming back with the kids, and so Ian said, why don't we pray for Erin? And so that's what we did.
Did you lie to them?
I did lie to them.
And why didn't you tell them the truth about what you were intending?
I was really embarrassed. I was ashamed of the fact that I didn't have control over my body or what I ate. I was ashamed of that and embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody, but I shouldn't have lied to them.
Patterson had booked a pre-surgery assessment for the gastric band, she told the jury, for September. Mandy didn't ask why, in July, she would need to ask anyone for help with the children at least 2 months into the future for a type of minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery that typically requires a single day's stay in hospital. And then what Patterson clearly thought was the ace. She was suffering from bulimia, and that's why she had not suffered the ill effects of death cap mushroom poisoning. Patterson said after her lunch guests went home, she polished off 2/3 of an orange cake Gail Patterson had baked.
I had a piece of cake, and then another piece of cake, and then another.
How many pieces of cake did you have?
All of it.
Then she threw up. And although the court was mercifully spared a description of exactly what was in the toilet bowl, Patterson's implication was that she had expelled poisoned beef Wellington along with the ex-cake. When Crown Prosecutor Nanette Rogers SC probed Patterson on this, she was characteristically defensive.
Is it your evidence that the vomit was partly constituted by the beef Wellington, correct?
I have no idea what was in the vomit.
At all?
Well, how could I? It's vomit. Unless you can see a bean or a piece of corn.
Well, you didn't have corn at the lunch.
That was an example.
I suggest that you did not tell a single medical person that you had vomited after the lunch on the afternoon of the 29th of July.
That is true. I did not do that.
I suggest that that is something you would have told them if it were true, correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
Do you say it's incorrect because of your embarrassment?
I say it's incorrect because it's what happened.
Coming up, how Patterson's attempts to get a laugh from the jury failed. Before entering the witness box, Patterson had sat through the entire trial, watching from the dock. She had observed the jovial, collegial atmosphere that emerges in long trials. The judge, lawyers and even some witnesses naturally become familiar with one another, and the odd laugh emerges. When Detective Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall was in the witness box, he charmed the jury with apparent ease. They chuckled at his self-deprecating asides, like when he said his boss didn't like him spending too much money.
You don't have to keep saying, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a habit, sir, Your Honour.
We'll save time.
Patterson clearly thought she too could get the odd laugh out of the jury. She described, on the evening before the fatal lunch, trying to talk to her son and having to lift one headphone can off his ear to tell him something. The jury didn't laugh. She mentioned a building professional looking at the plans she'd drawn up for her dream home and telling her they were hopeless.
I drew a design myself first in Microsoft Paint and gave that to the building designer, and he said, that'll never work engineering-wise, let's move it around a bit. But he modelled it quite closely on how I wanted things sorted out.
Not a chuckle. Similarly, Patterson's few moments of breathy tearfulness and distress seemed to fall flat. Not once did Justice Christopher Beale offer her a break, as judges often do when witnesses become distressed. And not once did she let out a torrent of unfiltered distress, along the lines one might expect from someone deep in guilt-laden grief. "I cannot believe this has happened. I haven't slept a full night since July 2023. I will never recover from my terrible mistake." Patterson kept her composure. Even when her voice quavered, she was fully in control. It's easier to seem reasonable and friendly in examination in chief. You'd have to be a pretty terrible witness to get into a fight with your own barrister. But Patterson then tried to foot it with the senior Crown prosecutor, Nanette Rogers, in cross-examination. Cross-examination, as well as an opportunity to elicit evidence, is also a chance for the barrister to try and extract revelatory behaviour from the witness. An angry snap, a tantrum, tears. Patterson stayed completely calm. On June 10, under cross-examination, she continued coolly insisting she could not remember ever visiting the iNaturalist website, despite searches on that site for death cap mushrooms on her computer.
Who lived in your house on the 28th of May 2022?
Myself and my 2 children.
Are you suggesting it was your son?
I'm not suggesting anything.
Are you suggesting it was your daughter?
I'm not suggesting anything.
By not giving anything, Patterson gave Rogers exactly what she needed. The same flat, calm demeanour she exhibited after poisoning her family. Patterson's defence case was that she panicked after accidentally lacing the food with death caps. But in the witness box, she showed she wasn't a panicker at all. She was testy and snippy.
You knew that if you told police the truth, then you would be immediately suspected by police of being involved in a poisoning event.
That's probably true, yes.
I suggest that you had been dehydrating death cap mushrooms on or after the date of the purchase of the dehydrator to put into the beef Wellingtons you served your 4 guests at the lunch. Agree or disagree?
Can you ask that again, please? But before you do, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the microphone, it covers your face and it makes it hard for me to fully... I lip read a little bit.
Another new piece of information for the jury who'd never heard from Patterson or anyone else that she was hearing impaired. This persnickety, argumentative Patterson was very different from the patient-devoted mother who'd presented herself in evidence in chief. She was more like the Erin Patterson who emerged in the Facebook Messenger chats the jury had also seen. The one who wrote things like,
"This family, I swear to fucking God."
She used eye-rolling emojis to describe her reaction to Don Patterson's suggestion she and Simon pray for God's help in sorting out their problems. Then in the witness box tried to deny they were eye rolls. Cold, snarky, too smart by half, cynical, a liar. That's who the Crown said Erin Patterson really was. Turned out the jury thought so too. The Australian's own John Ferguson broke the story of these mushroom murders way back in 2023, and along with our reporters Ellie Dudley and Mohammed Al-Faraz, he's reporting live from Morwell. At The Australian, our subscribers get app alerts direct to their phones, all the hottest news and all the best analysis. Join us at theaustralian.com.au.